Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. The Taliban is pleading for help from the international community following a devastating earthquake in Afghanistan, which claimed more than 1,000 lives. A Christian humanitarian organization is helping to provide clean drinking water for so many in Ukraine devastated by the war with Russia. And a special flag-raising ceremony took place at various Alberta hospitals. We will explain why.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. The government of Alberta says there's good news when it comes to COVID-19. There are now only 17 people in intensive care battling the virus, when in March there were 88. A number of Albertans have apparently recovered. There have been 1,086 cases of COVID-19 reported over the past 7 days, with 661 people battling the virus in hospital. Alberta Health Minister Jason Copping says while we're winning the fight against the virus, masking will remain in both hospitals and other healthcare facilities.
Masking will continue to be required at all AHS and contracted health facilities through their own policy. Other community health providers, such as physicians, pharmacists, or physiotherapy clinics, may also have this policy in place, and it is important to follow their requirements. This will help protect sick and vulnerable patients seeking medical care from exposure to COVID-19. We also recognize that residents in continuing care settings are among the most vulnerable to severe outcomes and are continuing to benefit from additional layers of protection. That is why residents will continue to be a priority for additional booster doses and are among those eligible for antiviral treatments.
A flag raising took place earlier Thursday morning at Chinook Regional Hospital here in Lethbridge. Alberta Health Services says this is one of the many steps needed to bring systemic changes within the healthcare system. A member with the Blackfoot Confederacy Council says they're making these steps to eventually bridge those gaps within the system as we work our way towards reconciliation.
We need to take active steps to transform the healthcare system, and raising the flag today is one of the many steps we are taking towards this goal. This flag symbolizes the unity and the strength of the four nations within the Blackfoot Confederacy.
We've been making great efforts in a variety of areas, including health and education, children's services, and trying to make some inroads into some of the more important policy decision-making tables, and helping to just address, some of the discrepancies that exist in all of those areas. It's more. It does symbolize the efforts that we're making towards trying to create awareness of the importance of our culture and the importance of how our people that are in the system, that are in the healthcare system, are trying to. Trying to heal themselves in a good way, but also to, of course, working with Alberta Health Services to try to eliminate some of the racism that exists and some of the discrimination that exists as well.
Similar flags were also raised at hospitals in Cardston and Pincher Creek. The province announced that it will be providing more support to Indigenous communities interested in establishing their own police services. Government officials say there will also be additional resources made available for existing Indigenous police services. Alberta Justice Minister Tyler Shandro says a grant will be made available for Indigenous communities looking to explore various options.
And that's why we're establishing a new grant which will offer up to $30,000 to Indigenous and municipal communities who want to explore different policing models and get the information that they need to choose the best path forward for them. We're also providing supplemental funding which will allow the province's 3 existing independent Indigenous police bodies, the Blood Tribe, Tsuut'ina Nation, and Lakeshore Regional Police Services, to hire a combined total of 15 new officers. And this additional workforce capacity will ensure that these police services are better positioned than ever to meet the needs of their communities.
Calgary Conservative MP Michelle Rempel-Garner has decided not to seek the UCP leadership. The longtime politician was mulling over taking a crack at becoming Alberta's new premier, but instead will focus on helping Patrick Brown in his CPC leadership bid. Rempel-Garner has been a federal Conservative MP since 2011 and gained a reputation as both an outspoken booster of Alberta and someone who has also fought for LGBTQ2+ rights. The field to replace Jason Kenney is pretty crowded already. It includes former Finance Minister Travis Taves, along with former leaders of the Alberta Wildrose Party, Brian Jean and Daniel Smith. The United Conservatives will choose their new leader on October the 6th. Well, we enjoyed another beautiful summer day here in Lethbridge with just a few clouds. Jeanette Rocher is in now with an early look at the forecast. Jeanette, for those who are praying for moisture, however, more rain clouds may be arriving soon.
Yeah, and you know how I actually felt a few drops this afternoon, but then just as quickly they went away. But yes, we are still looking at a slight chance of showers and the possibility of a thunderstorm later on today into Friday morning, looking at some showers as well and then clearing up later. Tomorrow's high 11 degrees. We are still contending with wind as well. We were seeing gusts up to 70 kilometers per hour today. Same thing tonight. Those gusts will remain tomorrow up to 60 kilometers per hour. As for the rest of the weekend, though, well, I'll have all those details coming up for you later on in the show.
Great. Thanks so much, Jeanette. It seems that Canadians love Alberta so much that thousands more are moving here. According to a recent report by ATB Economics and Stats Canada, in the first 3 months of 2022, 5,351 more people moved to our province from other regions of the country. That was the largest gain of any province in Canada. The second highest was British Columbia with 3,051 new residents and Nova Scotia with 2,419. Ontario lost the most residents at 11,566, followed by Manitoba at 2,229. The study said Alberta's improved economic conditions are likely a key factor in the recent turnaround in net interprovincial migration. A new phone survey to showcase what Lethbridge's most pressing issues were was presented at a Governance Standing Policy Committee meeting on Thursday. The results will be presented to Lethbridge City Council at a later date. 400 residents aged 18 and older participated in the study. Catherine Naus, the Director of Public Affairs for Ipsos, says the biggest concern was social issues, which received nearly 31%. Many people were concerned as well about homelessness, affordable housing, and issues facing youth and our seniors. Those in our city were also concerned about transportation, along with drugs and crime. Naus says it's quite common to see such a small sample size.
For example, if we were going to do a Canada-wide study, it's not unusual to do a sample of 1,000, even though I think the population of Canada now is probably close to 37 million. So that's a very standard sample size for a national survey, and it gives you a margin of error plus or minus 3.1%. And if we were going to do a national study in the US, for example, which has a much larger population, if we did a survey of 1,000 there, we'd still have the same margin of error because your margin of error isn't based on your size of your population unless you're dealing with very small sample sizes.
Transportation was another important local issue. Only 22% of those polled say they were satisfied with Lethbridge City Transit. That is down from 66% in 2020. The town of Nobleford has now joined a growing list of small communities in creating a free little pantry. They offer food judgment-free for those who need it. As BCN's Micah Quinn explains, the creators of the pantry say this is a great option for people as the town doesn't have access to a food bank.
Members of Duke Crew Jr., which is a youth-led volunteer group, cut the ceremonial ribbon on Wednesday evening for the first free little pantry in the town of Nobleford.
Nobleford being quite a ways away from any of the bigger cities, like it's a half-an-hour drive from Lethbridge. If a family is struggling, let's say, to even get gas in their vehicle, they can't even make it to those other food supports. So by having something accessible that they can walk to is really a big step for the community because there's not really anything else close by other than directly asking people for support, which is hard to do sometimes, right?
The sign says take what you need and give what you can and is meant to be a judgment-free option for those facing food insecurity.
You know, people know they can come here and they're not interacting with other people that become aware of their needs. It's also a way that the community can give. So if you have something to give, you can. And if you are in need, you can take.
Volunteers from Youth Crew Jr. applied for the Youth in Action grant from the Community Foundation of Lethbridge and Southwestern Alberta and received $1,500 for the project.
Part of the money was going to building it, but we said let's give them the money so that they can buy extra food, especially as we come into winter and Christmas. But then we learned that they went out on their own food drive. So again, great leadership coming forward from this group.
The food pantry is located in Centennial Park in Nobleford and is available to anyone who needs it. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
What a great idea. There's a Christian ministry in Calgary whose mission it is to help those who are battling addictions. Craig Hill, Executive Director of the Calgary Dream Centre, says they're committed to helping those make a positive change in their lives. He says they've seen a lot of success thanks to their effective programs.
Recovery is challenging. The good news, however, is we see a massive amount of success in the testimonies and the feedback of life change, because we're really not interested in helping people just simply put an X on their calendar where they're staying dry or sober. We are all about helping people rediscover their destiny and purpose and who they really truly were meant to be, and connect with God in ways that perhaps they've never experienced before.
Catch the full interview with Craig Hill from the Calgary Dream Centre and BCN's Jeanette Rocher coming up later in our newscast. The United States has become the first country in the world to offer a COVID-19 vaccine for children under the age of 5. U.S. President Joe Biden says parents can even give the jab to their kids as young as 6 months.
For the first time in our fight against this pandemic, nearly every American can now have access to life-saving vaccines. And we're ready. My administration, with the help of the CDC, has been planning and preparing for this moment for a long time. But I know some parents might have questions. I encourage you to talk to the doctor after you make a plan to get your child vaccinated. For your children older than 5 years of age, for everyone else, get your shots, get your boosters. And let's be clear, elected officials shouldn't get in the way and make it more difficult for parents who want their children to be vaccinated, who want to protect them and those around them.
Throngs of tourists returned to a portion of Yellowstone National Park following devastating flooding, which shut the entire park down last week. Many were there to see the legendary Old Faithful geyser shoot towering bursts of steaming water.
We didn't think we were going to make it. We thought this was going to have to be put off to hopefully maybe next summer. We were going to have to come out here. So we're just glad that it happened this way. So we would definitely come out again, but if we don't get an opportunity for a while, we're glad we got to see these things. We decided we were going to go full-time RV family last year, and we sold our house, and the first thing we did was book a trip to Yellowstone last July. We couldn't even get into the park because everything over 30 feet long was already taken, so we booked at outside the West Gate in Montana. And our entire trip for the whole year was based off this trip to Yellowstone. And then last Monday, we were coming out of the Grand Tetons and into Yellowstone, and that was when the flood happened and everything got closed down.
Locals in eastern Afghanistan dug graves on Thursday in villages reduced to rubble by a powerful earthquake that killed at least 1,000 people. Officials say more than 1,500 were also injured. The 6.1 magnitude quake was centered in a rugged mountainous region of eastern Afghanistan. In a rare move, Taliban's leader, who almost never appears in public, pleaded with the international community and humanitarian agencies for help. Much of the world has shunned the Taliban government since it took over Afghanistan 10 months ago. Local residents and survivors of that devastating quake in Afghanistan are also appealing for help through the country's state-run news agency.
1500 کورنۍ چې دا کرینا زیانمن شوي دي بعض بالکل د واستاګه نه دي چې قابل د واستاګه نه دي بعض دا شوي دي چې تخریب شوي دي زیات د خطر سره مخ دي او نه دا چې غرایز علاقه دو ساحل لري دو رسیدګي په مټر واسطه سره پیواورز کې یا پیو سات کنه شي کېدای چې هوایي ځواک یا هوایي مرسته نه وي نو دغه په اساس معلومات تل نه دي جمع شوي خو دا کوم چې میږ د خلک نه جمع کړي دي هغه معلومات دغه دي
موږ ته اسلامي امارت نه د ټول وطن نه دغه درخواست دی چې موږ سره د مرسته وکړو او موږ دغه په شنو لاسمان لاندې پرته په خیمه کې یو تشي او دراکو نشته.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau paid his respects to the victims of the 1994 Rwandan genocide. The attacks occurred during the Rwandan Civil War. During that time, which was around 100 days, members of the Tutsi minority group, along with other moderates, were killed by armed militias. Trudeau is in Rwanda for the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. Trudeau is the first Canadian Prime Minister to visit the Kigali Genocide Memorial. Following his visit to the memorial, Trudeau announced $250 million in new funding for the World Food Programme on the sidelines of the Commonwealth Summit in Rwanda. He blamed Russia's invasion of Ukraine for skyrocketing energy and food prices. Farmers in the Donetsk region of Ukraine are worried about the impending harvest season. Many say they're struggling, pressed by the dangers of war, high fuel prices, and the challenge of servicing their equipment.
Перша небезпека те, що йдуть бойові дії, воно може будь-яку минуту попасти снаряд сюди і може просто згоріти. і ми не зможемо брати цю пшеницю. Да, може бути ще те, що коли механізатор працює на полі, він не може побачити міну та наїхати на цю міну і зможе підірватися на ній. Це теж небезпека. Ми всі ризикуємо, але будемо обирати цю пшеницю.
Samaritan's Purse is helping to provide clean water for tens of thousands of people in Ukraine devastated by the war with Russia. Teams are setting up reverse osmosis machines in key locations throughout the country.
WASH team in Ukraine is one of the projects of Samaritan Purse responding to this war situation in Ukraine, and we are trying to find places in Ukraine that need clean water, drinking water. One of the main places in our country now is city of Mykolaiv. Russian troops had broken the water supply to the city over a month ago. When we learned about that need, the only solution at this situation was to provide them with reverse osmosis system. We brought it to Mykolaiv, and it's already working.
This is a reverse osmosis machine. It takes water, which is brackish or salty, and purifies it so that it can be drinking water. With this machine, we can produce 18,000 liters per day, which services about 3,600 people per day. And we're deploying several of these units in our target regions to get as much clean water as possible for people in need. By deploying these systems, by training individuals to operate them, and by partnering with brave individuals still in those regions, we can provide clean water for people who are affected by this conflict.
We are very excited about it because we can provide not just physical water, but the church will be able to provide spiritual water and help to people who will be coming there. And we would like to thank Samaritan Purse and all of the donors for this help they are providing in our country.
That is so wonderful to see. God's people working with modern technology to make a big difference in Ukraine. Also wonderful to see and feel the warm temperatures across much of southwestern Alberta, and that trend should continue. A complete look at the weather picture is coming up. It was another beautiful day here in the city, but a little breezy at times, however. Jeanette Rocher is in now with all of the weather details. Jeanette, those winds may be blowing in more rain clouds soon?
Yeah, there is a slight chance of some showers still. And you're right, Hal. We've been seeing quite gusty winds lately, 70 kilometer per hour. Today, we're going to see that tonight. Tomorrow, we're going to feel winds up to 60K. So yeah, it's been a little windy. Friday, also looking at that chance of showers, especially earlier in the day, 11 degrees the high. Into Saturday, 19 and sunshine. Beautiful day on Sunday, 24, sunny skies. Same thing for Monday, up to 25 degrees on Tuesday. And some shower activity Tuesday night into Wednesday as well. A high of 21 on Wednesday to round out that 7-day forecast. So we are going to see the temperature dipping a little bit for Friday as we get that moisture system in. 23 the average high for this time of year, 9 degrees the average low. 38 was our high temperature on this day back in 1941. And in 1967 we had our chilliest, which was 2 degrees only. 5:24 is when the sun rose this morning. Our sun set this evening, 9:40 at 3 p.m., giving us 16 hours and 19 minutes of daylight. So we're starting to see that daylight recede a little bit now as we've gotten past the summer solstice. 22 degrees tomorrow on the coast, feeling a little bit warmer inland. Sunshine in both of our coastal cities, Victoria and Vancouver. Edmonton sitting at 18 tomorrow with some showers. Same thing for Calgary, shower activity and only 12 degrees tomorrow. Into the rest of the prairies, we are seeing Saskatoon high 27, looking at some humidity there as well. Showers, risk of a thunderstorm, sunshine in Regina tomorrow, high of 24. And look at that temperature for Winnipeg, 29 degrees there. That's where all the humidity is for sure. Shower activity and a risk of some thunderstorms there as well. Toronto sitting at 29 degrees, going to feel more like up into the 30s with the humidex, sunshine there. Ottawa, 28. Mix of sun and cloud, going to feel like it's up in the 30s as well with the humidex. 27 the high in Montreal with some shower activity. Seeing 2 millimeters of rain tomorrow in Fredericton, 23 the high, 16 the high in Halifax. Seeing 5 to 10 millimeters of rain. Charlottetown also seeing 5 millimeters of rain tomorrow, 21 degrees the high and 25 the high in St. John's with 40% chance of showers there. So there you have it. That is your forecast.
A new report from the Federal Housing Authority says Canada would need to add 22 million housing units by the year 2030 to ensure that everyone has affordable housing in the country. Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation says that would require developers to become more productive and make full use of land holdings. Governments, meanwhile, would need to accelerate regulatory systems. Officials say the biggest declines in affordability are in BC and Ontario, where 2/3 of the housing supply gap is found. It says average households in both provinces need to devote close to 60% of their income to buy a house last year. That's up from 40% in Ontario and 45% in British Columbia. A new survey finds almost 50% of Canadians who rent will continue to do so long term since they're unable to get into the housing market. The study by Canada Life says renters cited a lack of cash, fear, and uncertainty for staying on the sidelines. Close to 73% says it's a bad time to purchase a home, and 17% say they will never ever buy one. While 79% of respondents believe home ownership is a good investment, 64% do not believe they will ever own a home without financial support from family members. The survey also found that those between the ages of 25 and 29 were more likely to continue renting indefinitely compared to those aged 30 to 39. U.S. health officials have ordered vaping company Juul to pull its electric cigarettes from the American market. It's a big blow to the company that is widely blamed for a surge in teen vaping. The announcement by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration is part of a sweeping regulatory review of e-cigarettes. Manufacturers are being required to show their products help reduce the harm of smoking for adults without appealing to kids in order to stay on the market. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was down 286 points on the day to finish at 18,717. The Dow was up 194 points to 30,677. The S&P 500 was up 35 points to 3795, and the Nasdaq was up 179 on the day to 11,232. West Texas Intermediate Oil was down $1.92 to 104.27 US per barrel. Natural gas was down 62 cents to 6.24 US. Gold was up 2 cents to 18.2279 US an ounce, and silver was even on the day at $20.96 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $13.47 per bushel, barley's at $9.53, canola's at $20.09, and corn is at $11.43 per bushel. Live cattle were down 88 cents to $135.25, feeder cattle were up $1.70 to $174.85, and lean hogs were down $3.30 to $108.55. The Canadian dollar was up slightly over the past 24 hours to 76.98 US. Recapping one of our top stories, Calgary Conservative MP Michelle Rempel-Garner has decided not to seek the UCP leadership. The longtime politician was mulling over taking a crack at becoming Alberta's new premier, but instead says she will focus on helping Patrick Brown in his CPC leadership bid. There's a Christian organization in Calgary which helps those battling addictions get their lives back on track. Coming up, we shall hear the success stories from Craig Hill, Executive Director of the Calgary Dream Centre.
Here's your Bridge City News community calendar. The Lethbridge Dragon Boat Festival is celebrating 20 years. Presented by ATB Financial, this event brings dragon boaters from across Western Canada together for a weekend of fun competition on the water, as well as live entertainment, a fun kids zone, and delicious food and refreshments. Come out and cheer on your favorite boat. June 24th to the 26th at Henderson Lake Park. For more information, visit lethbridgedragonboatfest.ca. Lethbridge Sport Council's Outdoor Roving Gyms program is taking place Tuesdays behind Nicholas Sharon Arena and Thursdays alternating between Henderson Lake Park and Legacy Park from 10 to 11 a.m. This program is for kids ages 5 and under and their caregivers. Come and enjoy an hour of fun and get active. Registration is required and space is limited. For details and to register, visit lethbridgesportcouncil.ca/roving gyms. And that's your Bridge City News community calendar.
Well, homelessness and addictions continue to be difficult challenges in communities across our country. Some of you may have either struggled with these things personally or know someone who has. Is there hope, though? Well, today's guest says there is. Joining us from Calgary is Craig Hill. He is the Executive Director of the Calgary Dream Centre. Welcome to Bridge City News, Craig. So great to have you on today.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be with you.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, so Craig, first of all, maybe give us a snapshot of the history of the Calgary Dream Centre and what you're all about.
Thank you for that opportunity. I'd be happy to. We have a really special story from our beginning. We were really birthed out of the notion that there's a need, and the need was real. The need was not going anywhere, and we felt that we could address it. I'll just give you a very brief snapshot of our backstory. It was a little better than 20 years ago. There was a church in Calgary that had heard of something called the Los Angeles Dream Center that was needing people to come down and help them get off the ground. And we heard that invitation and we responded, and we found ourselves in LA, well outside of our comfort zone, doing things that we had never experienced. We were helping folks under the bridges. We were helping people in Tent City. We went down to Skid Row in LA, and we were just dealing with whatever need was presented to us and finding ways that we could offer help. And help was simple. It was sandwiches, it was clothing, it was letting folks know on the street that there was a place that was now open to help if they wanted help. And it was so impactful that we would regularly, this church in Calgary would go down a few times a year. And as we would continue to see the impact and the fruitfulness, the vision was caught by the team, and they realized Calgary needs a dream center. And with that, well, sounds like a great idea, but how do we do this? Where do we do this? Right. And a team was put together. It was referred to as an Issachar team, a group of people that could discern the time and the season. Let's find a place and begin this dream. So one of Calgary's worst hotels, a hotel that had a reputation with police and bylaw, had a strip club, a heavy metal bar, and a third bar in it operating. That became the targeted building, and we were able to secure it. And we transformed a building that was used for very dark purposes into a facility that was going to change lives. And we opened the doors with 3 staff, and 12 residents began about 18 years ago. And since that time, we've been operating and have seen incredible impact and incredible fruit and been able to expand our influence. And with that, we feel like we've just now, 20 years later, we've kind of figured some things out, and we're just getting started.
Wow, what an incredible story. So, Craig, who are these people who come to you for help, and what kinds of problems are they typically dealing with?
The folks who come through our doors, this is not a cliche answer. They are truly the most everyday folks that you could expect to see. They are somebody's son, somebody's husband, brother, father. And we have gentlemen who come to us from very dire circumstance that they've lived on the streets for years, and others who have made decisions that have taken them down a path that they never fathomed that they would go down, and they are reaching out for help. So we have young men that are young adults, and we have folks that are senior in years and everything in between. We have well-educated, and we have those with no education, because the truth is, addiction and homelessness, it's no respecter of persons. It can unexpectedly sneak up on anyone, and we see all those sorts of folks here.
Yeah, that's so true, Craig, because addiction doesn't discriminate, right? It can happen to absolutely anyone. You mentioned gentlemen. Is this open to only men then?
Dream Center started originally as a men's facility, and it was in this one hotel that was on McLeod Trail in Calgary. And since then, we have expanded, and we have women's programming as well. We've had a women's recovery program that recently we had to press pause to because of some of the challenges, all things pandemic and facility, but we have had a women's program that we will be relaunching again. And we have safe housing also for a number of women in the city. We have a couple of facilities that they're able to go to. So it's men in our program. And we have at any given time here, we have a program that's available for up to 30 men for a 7-week program where they're here at the Dream Center facility. And then they're also able to, if they like, graduate into transitional housing, which is further space within this building that they're able to stay and get themselves settled and put a recovery plan in motion. And then even beyond that, we have homes throughout the city. We have a number of properties where a person can move into, stabilize, be safe, secure, and really get reestablished and reintegrated into society.
Sounds like such a wonderful program. Now, how often do your clients maybe fall off the wagon or get back into addictions again? And if they do, what's the process to help get them back on track?
That's a very, very tricky question to answer and difficult process for these gentlemen, because it can happen at any given moment. Now, how do you determine success rate? Well, we tell these guys that the process really is not like they've climbed a ladder and when there's an incident or an episode, all that motion and success now goes back to zero. It's not like that. It's a journey where they've come from here and now progressively they make it this far, and then an incident or a challenge happens. They don't have to go back to zero. They're able to continue from that place of progress. And we do see that. You'll see that. It's difficult to give you a specific number because folks do go about their journeys, but it's not uncommon at all for us to see folks who, they were here 7 years ago and now they're coming back, and their language is, I had to come home. I had to come back for a tune-up. Recovery is challenging. The good news, however, is we see a massive amount of success and the testimonies and the feedback of life change, because we're really not interested in helping people just simply put an X on their calendar where they're staying dry or sober. We are all about helping people rediscover their destiny and purpose and who they really truly were meant to be, and connect with God in ways that perhaps they've never experienced before. And there's the difference maker as well that I have to say I've seen. Those who experience what we refer to in this building as something special, because we welcome everybody from every walk of life, from every faith background. You can bring in any belief system you want here, but if we do our job well, we've been able to direct people to the God that we believe in, and He is the difference maker for sure.
Okay, so now you are a faith-based organization, so at the core, I guess, of the Calgary Dream Center is that faith. So how do you go about sharing this or sharing the gospel with the people that come through the door, I guess, like your clients, and how do they respond to that?
I had a gentleman come up to me this morning after our session together, and he just said to me, I have never experienced anything like I have experienced here. I've been to church, but this is different. You know, and it's interesting because when people are at rock bottom, there's just a receptivity, and many of your audience today will understand that Jesus is so close to the brokenhearted, and there's something extraordinarily special about when someone is at that place of brokenness and dependence, that God just shows up in a way that's so tender and powerful and special. What happens here is a person literally can come in with their story, their belief, their lack of belief, faith, no faith. And if we've done our job well, we've given them the science, we've given them the tools, and they realize the Calgary Dream Center is different. And we don't shy away from telling them that in the recovery world, Jeanette, there's often language referred to as higher power. That's kind of an understood, safe tone in throughout recovery communities and meetings. And we say at the Dream Center, our higher power is Jesus Christ as expressed through the Bible. And we're going to share with you who He is to us and the difference that our faith makes in what we do and how we do it. You're welcome to believe or not believe, but that's where you are. So when you come into a faith-based organization, you haven't come into a church where we're here to convert you to our belief system, but you're going to be exposed and understand why we do what we do, the way we do it, and you're going to be invited into conversations that are unique and special. And then I'll give you one more side that is, on Sundays, there's a church that meets here. It's called Imagine Church, and it's fully optional for these men to attend if they like, if they don't want to. And more often than not, most of the guys hear this beautiful worship music coming from the hall and begin to poke their head in, or they've heard from someone in the building that church is different. And you'll find these guys in program and not be able to differentiate between the PhD, the junior high school teacher, and gentlemen who are in program, because it's the whosoever is here. And that experience is really having a huge impact and exposing them to faith.
Now, Craig, a big part of recovery is finding a steady job, of course, and a stable home. So can you maybe explain how you help these individuals get jobs and how the Calgary Dream Center's house settings work?
You're right. See, we're much more than just trying to get them clean for a few days or the X on the calendar. It is about restoring them to productivity and to their families. So part of what's happening through their 7-week program are dealing with life skills and career skills and dealing with those, helping them with very practical things about, this may sound pretty base, but oftentimes they come with no identification. They have no means of being reestablishing credit or cleaning up those things that are in the closet, the credit issues or things with the police, and all that sort of stuff needs to be addressed in order for you to take that next step. And our case managers on a weekly basis are having appointments and resourcing the gentleman in that direction. And then one other thing that we're really proud to be able to do is in the last little while, we have opened here at the Dream Center a thrift store. And we're able to have some of our men or women volunteer or serve at the thrift store. We have a cafe right here in the building that gives opportunity for folks to participate in. We've got staff positions that we make available to those who have graduated. So we really see, it's incredible. You can come from a broken place and we'll help you to move into career and stability again.
That's amazing. Now, Craig, what are the signs of addiction? Like if you notice that something is off with one of your kids at home or a loved one that you see struggling, what should we maybe be aware of?
The signs that a person needs to look for would be just changes in behavior that are significant and noticeable: withdrawal, change in your rhythms of sleeping. And that may sound like, well, that's just what teenagers do. No, it's much more than that. A lack of almost a sense of suspicion and duality. Everybody is beginning to operate with a little bit of a different lifestyle. The patterns of the day-to-day just subtly start to change. And then when you feel like perhaps you're being told stories that are not true, that is a huge flag, because one of the key things that a user or someone struggling is that they have to begin to paint a dual life. And the stories being woven together just don't line up with the person that you know that individual to be. So look for those little tells, and also just countenance. You can begin to see the effects of drugs as an individual is using them quite quickly. That may sound simple, but I think the key here is you please don't ignore the promptings and those little indicators that something may not be right, and then ask the questions that need to be asked and listen carefully. Is this true? Does this align with the person you know them to be, or is there something here that's just not right?
So if we do notice those signs of addiction, how should we be responding? What are the do's and the don'ts?
If someone is not interested in getting help, you're going to have to just, story as difficult as this sounds, there is very little that can be done until somebody wants help. If they do want help, find the resources that are available quickly. Begin to reach out. Support is available through organizations like ours. There's tons of resources, and put those before your loved one, the person you care for. And if I could encourage, it would be do these things quickly. The sooner you get a hold, because the crisis right now, it's merciless, it's ravaging lives. And the sooner you can begin to help somebody get on the right path, obviously the better.
Okay, and then finally, Craig, because we're almost out of time here, how can people get in touch with you guys at the Calgary Dream Center? How can people get more involved in helping you guys too?
Sure, appreciate that opportunity to share. There's always volunteer needs here. Person can reach out through the calgarydreamcenter.com. All the information is available online. You can find our programs if you need help. You can find resources if you need help, volunteer opportunities. And then I would invite you to consider looking at some of the testimonials. You're going to begin to realize the beauty that is available, the other side of this disease and what's ravaging people. There is hope, and we're able to tell stories of hope. If you want to be a part of that, please, by all means, visit us, calgarydreamcenter.com, and you can learn more.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Craig, for being with us today. We really appreciate having you on.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Health and wholeness is a quest for many. People have different thoughts on supplements, doctors, and healthcare. So what role should nutrition play in our public healthcare system, and what role should personal responsibility play in the ways of our health? Joining me to discuss health, lifestyle, and nutrition is Chris Robinson from Lethbridge's own Purple Carrot. Chris, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Okay, so Chris, you're a nutritional consultant, right? And you've been a longtime entrepreneur in Lethbridge, and your store has just recently moved, or I guess expanded is probably a better way to say that. So maybe just give us a quick little backstory on why you moved.
We opened just over 5 years ago, and we started really little, and we didn't expect to grow so quickly. We have a lovely, loyal customer base here, and there's so many wonderful local companies, and we found we outgrew our space really, really quickly. So we were full. We had no room in our store, and so we needed to expand. So we moved down the street to the old Shots building, and now we have 3 times the space. So
Yeah, it's interesting. I know we were talking a little bit beforehand about kind of like the need for these healthcare foods or health like nutritional foods now, these stores that carry these kind of products and stuff. So does that kind of tell you a little bit about the choices that people in Southern Alberta are making?
yeah, for sure. I mean, you mentioned earlier that, personal responsibility. We all need to be responsible for our own health, and our choices we make have a huge impact on our health. What foods we put in, the air we breathe, the people we spend time with, and how much time we get out in the sun. There's what we believe, so many things like that, they actually affect our body. And so we want to provide a place where we can provide those things that people need to feel better. And when we take time to take care of ourselves, our health is better. We want to be a part of that for other people.
Now, have you always been into health and nutrition?
Absolutely. I grew up on the coast. My parents are super healthy hippies, tie-dye, jean shorts, that sort of thing. We grew wheatgrass in our dining room growing up. My doctor, 30 years ago was prescribing vitamins. I saw a chiropractor years ago before it was cool. We grew all our veggies. And for me, it was a part of how I grew up. It's a part of who I am. The smell of a health food store is home to me.
So then when you came from the coast to Southern Alberta, did you notice there was a huge gap in the market? And is that why you started your business?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I moved here just over 15 years ago, and I found I was having to go everywhere. And then when I started my nutritional consulting business, I was sending my clients everywhere. And so my business partner, Kathy, and she was my receptionist at the time, we were like, man, what could we do? And like, let's open our own store of all of our favorite things. And then that way we have a one central spot, for us to go to, but for the people who were, supporting and what have you, that they have somewhere to go to as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So as a nutritional consultant, what changes have you noticed in the local population, let's say like in relation to diet?
I think people are looking to do better. We've noticed in the last few years, oh shoot, there's some stuff going around that could affect our health. And so people are thinking about that. What can I do to make myself healthier? And so we have people coming in, what can I do to support my immune system? What can I do to prevent illness? What can I do this winter? What have you? How do I support these systems in my body? And so we're seeing a lot more of that than we were 2 years ago. A lot more questions on immune support and how do I be healthier? How can I ward off infections?
So what do you tell them? How do you ward off infections?
Well, I think the biggest thing is take care of your body. We need to eat good nutrient dense foods. The more nutrients we get in, the more we eat for a reason. We eat to get nutrients. So we need to make sure we're eating nutrient dense food. We're eating lots of vegetables. We're eating fruit. We're eating good quality foods, and we're not eating too much sugar. I mean, sugar in particular, if you can cut down or cut out sugar, that's the best thing you can do for your immune system. So I always tell people, get in lots of good and try not to get in too much bad.
Okay, there you go. That's great advice. I have a real problem with sugar myself. I'm a sugar
Yeah, well,
holic.
it's so addictive. It's more addictive, they say, than cocaine. Like
Oh my goodness.
it's bad, and it's so common. And young kids all the way up to our seniors,
Yeah.
it's addictive and it tastes delicious.
I'm in
But
trouble.
there's so many, but there's so many really good healthy foods that are delicious too. And I think that's something people miss. We don't realize that you can eat healthy and it doesn't have to be like you're eating cardboard every day. You can eat really delicious, amazing, healthy foods, and they taste good and they're good for you.
So now what about food sensitivities? This is like a huge topic that's come up lately over the past more recent years. I know I myself have certain food sensitivities. So, I know there's many ideas about the sources and causes, but can you maybe give us an example about how you could suggest a path to managing these food sensitivities?
Yeah, and that's actually the basis of my practice. I predominantly deal in food sensitivities and intolerances. And there's a variety of theories as to why this would happen. And in my opinion, in my experience, I think it's a perfect storm of a bunch of things. So stress will affect that. Chemical exposure, chemical is probably not the appropriate word, but toxin exposure, pesticide exposure. Our bodies have systems in place to naturally encourage elimination of toxins, but we're so bombarded by what we put in our hair, what we put on our skin, what's sprayed on our food, what's painted on our walls. I mean, we're exposed to so many toxins. We're adjusting how we're growing our food. We're doing weird things to our food. When you look at the ingredients, you go to the store and you look at that list of ingredients on there, we don't know what half of them are. So we're looking at preservatives and what have you. Like there's so much imbalance when we're constantly, bombarding ourselves with antibiotics and what have you. We deplete our good bacteria, and there's so much research on the microbiome now and our good bacteria. So when our microbiome is out of balance, that's a factor. So there's so many things that play in. And so if we're looking at improving or trying to ward off or trying to avoid food sensitivities, it's eat a variety of different foods. So don't eat the same thing every day. That's key. So overconsumption is another big cause of sensitivity. If you're eating the same thing every day for breakfast or every day for breakfast, lunch, and supper, what have you, your body can become overwhelmed with that. So eat a variety of foods. Again, eat nutrient-dense food. Eat foods where you know where that food came from. Where does an apple come from? A tree? Where doesn't it come from? We know where certain foods come from. So eat real foods. Do you know where FD&C yellow came from, or disodium guanylate, or propylene glycol, or those weird things that are in our food? We shouldn't be eating those things. So eat real foods. Eat less sugar, again, and affect your immune system. And de-stress is huge. But there's a lot of things. Reduce your toxin exposure. That's really important.
So would you say then like eating organic is maybe the way to go?
I'm a fan of eating organic for sure. I try and eat as much organic as possible. To me, it just makes sense. If there's less spray on there, there's less things that my body has to deal with. So the cleaner food that I can eat, the less work my detoxification pathways have to do, the less work my liver has to do, the less work my kidneys have to do, and that's good for me. So that's what I want. So like I said, less toxin exposure. And if one of the ways I can reduce toxins is by making sure they're not on my food, I do that for sure.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So would you say that food sensitivities are the same as allergies, or are they maybe two different things?
No, they're different. So like a true allergy, like a peanut allergy, is different than a food sensitivity or a food intolerance. And so depending on what practitioner you're seeing, so if you're seeing a doctor for allergies, they'll look for a particular antibody in your blood, or you can see a naturopath for a different blood work and they'll look for a different antibody, and that would be a food sensitivity or an intolerance. It's typically where we're not seeing something in the blood, but you're like, I know when I eat gluten, I feel crummy, but maybe your doctor says there's no allergy, or your naturopath says there's no sensitivity, but there's something going on there. And usually those intolerances are usually more when you're just not breaking down that food properly. So lack of enzymes, which would be another cause of food intolerances. We're just not breaking down our food properly.
Like, I guess, like how you're living, a lifestyle, even like a healthy home, for example. How does a home relate to allergies with food sensitivities? Is there a relationship there?
Oh, it's huge. For sure. I mean, and it's sort of what came first, the chicken or the egg. So if we have food sensitivities, we're going to be more likely to be reactive to other things in our environment. If we're reactive to things in our environment, that can affect us having more food sensitivities. And so again, when we look at, our air fresheners and our hairspray and our cleaning supplies, and there's some really alarming and compelling information about our cleaners we use in our house, about I never like to name names, but the Febrezes or the Glade plugins and what have you, and the toxicity that those cause.
Yeah,
And
those typical ones that you pick up at the grocery store or wherever, right?
yeah, your body has to deal with that. Everything you breathe in, everything that touches your skin, everything that you're consuming, your body has to deal with that. Your liver has to deal with that. Your kidneys have to break that down. We have to try and get rid of that. And a lot of the times we just can't keep up. We can't keep up to the toxic load we're exposed to. We should be able to. Our body should be able to do it on its own, but we can't. And so eliminating those toxins in our house are huge. And there's some really incredible studies, and sorry, I should have had one off the top of my head and I don't, but the correlation between allergies and toxins in the home and how many health problems they cause.
That's interesting. So, I mean, we want to have a clean home, obviously. So what is the alternative then if you don't want to break out that Mr. Clean or whatever? I've heard that there's like organic products out there. Is that the way to go?
Yeah, there's lots of cleaner products out there. I mean, really, in all honesty, most of those products make the job easier. They're going to melt away the scrubbing bubbles, that sort of thing. So it's elbow grease. Elbow grease is your biggest alternative. And so, vinegars and baking sodas, super simple, super cheap. They work well. You just got to work a little harder for that. But, there are a lot of products out there. We carry all sorts of natural cleaners and what have you that work really well, and they smell good. And they smell good from essential oils that are in there. So there's no toxic chemicals or what have you. So there's a lot of products that are out there, but you can use really simple things that you probably already have in your home that work really well, so long as you're willing to put a little muscle into it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm going to give that a try. Maybe talk about the relationship between food choice and our emotional well-being, because we often think physical or physiological when it comes to food, but it can affect our moods and our emotions as well, and just everything mentally, right?
Oh, for sure. I mean, they talk about in natural medicine or in the natural health industry, the gut-brain connection, and it sort of goes both ways. So if your guts are unhappy, you have an imbalance in your microbiome, there's too many bad guys, not enough good guys, that can affect your mental well-being, and vice versa. So if you're stressed, if your cortisol levels are high and you're running ragged and what have you, that's going to affect that, and so we'll see that, oh, I got butterflies in my tummy, or, I'm nervous. So people will sometimes have to run to the washroom if they're nervous. And so it goes both ways. And so when we have a healthy diet, when we have a healthy gut, that can affect our mental well-being. And when we work hard at having a happy mental well-being and we're doing the things we need to do, we're having self-care, we're getting outside, maybe you're meditating or praying or doing whatever you do to calm yourself, that will have a positive impact on your digestive system and therefore the rest of your health as well. So it goes both ways.
Mm-hmm. Do you have maybe an example of a really dramatic change in one of your clients who maybe switched their lifestyle like this, maybe switched to these organic products or switched to organic foods instead? What kind of a difference did it make in them?
Oh God, I have hundreds of stories. One of my favorites is one more recently. It was a customer came into the store, and I knew her a couple of different ways. So she wasn't actually my client, but she came in the store and she's like, I'm so inflamed, my joints hurt, my feet hurt, I'm having hot flashes all night, I feel terrible. And I was like, okay. So I suggested that she follow an anti-inflammatory diet. So basically an anti-inflammatory diet is we take out foods that cause inflammation. So I find dairy, gluten, corn, sugar are the big ones. So I suggested she pull out those foods and increase her vegetables. And so then a week later, she emailed me and she's like, oh my gosh, this is so hard. This is terrible. I just want to eat marshmallows and s'mores when I go camping.
That would have been the hardest week of my life to cut out. Like,
Yeah,
I
so
mean, I love popcorn. So like you have to eliminate corn and, of course, the carbs, the gluten, the sugar.
Yeah. And so it was a lot. And so she was freaking out. I said, You can do this. Right now it's hard, but this is that emotional eating. You want to crave those foods, make you temporarily feel good. So stick through it. It's going to get easier, I promise. And then a week, maybe 2 weeks later, I see her walk in the store and she's walking towards me with this look on her face. And I was like, oh, no, she's going to be so mad. And she was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe how good I feel. She's like, my joint pain is gone. I feel so amazing. I'm not having hot flash tonight. She's like, I feel so good. I can't even believe the difference. And then that's the way she just continues to eat, because she feels so good that way, that she just, it's not worth it to eat the s'mores or the McDonald's or whatever it is she wanted to eat before. And that's the thing, it's hard at first, and we're emotional creatures. We emotionally eat. So when you make a dietary change to start, it's difficult. But if you can get past that and then you start seeing the benefits from it, it's so much easier to stick to it. And then it's worth it.
Yeah, what a great example that is. I love that. It's an actual real life example. And it just goes to show you don't necessarily need those prescriptions. Sometimes it's just eliminating certain things that we're just consuming a lot of. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, it's our food. Your food is your foundation for your health. We have to start with food if we want to be healthy. And vitamins and supplements and herbs, man, they have a place. And again, I could tell you a million stories about those where I'm blown away at the results. But you can take the best vitamin in the world or the best this in the world or what have you. If you don't have that foundation in place, of eating well and drinking lots of water, nothing's going to improve. So we want to start with that foundation of a good diet.
Yeah, fantastic advice. Chris, thank you so much. It looks like we are out of time, but we appreciate you coming on today and educating us like this.
My pleasure. It's my favorite thing to talk about.
That's great. Chris Robinson is the owner of Lethbridge's own Purple Carrot and a nutritional consultant. We're so glad to have her on today. I'm Jeanette Roche on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks for watching.